Today we're going to use an apple as the subject for our sketchbook drawing. And so instead of just drawing an apple, we're going to start with an apple core, a whole apple, and then of course we have our leaves. So our first step is we're going to use our prop to sort of establish the size. So again, I want to think about my paper. I don't want to plop the core. The core is closest to me, so I'm going to start with that first, but I don't want it in the center of the paper. So I'm going to put my cup in the center of the paper, and I'm going to shift it to the right, because when I look at the core is a little bit to the right of center, and I'm going to make a light line. I want to remember that the core is the same size as a whole apple, even though parts of it are missing. Okay, so there's my core. And looking at the placement, the bottom of the core is in front. So I want to check and see how far behind the core, where does the apple, if I come across with my pencil and line that up, where does that touch the core? So I'm going to slide the cup back and over to the left so that that looks like about the right amount of space. Okay, so I moved the cup back and a little bit to the left. The apple overlaps and that looks a little far. I'm going to bring it back a little bit to the right. And start my apple. Now remember, we're trying to draw large, so it's totally fine if the apple and the leaves go off the edge of the paper. The next thing I want to check is what is the actual size of a leaf. Well, if I take the size of the apple and I take the size of the leaf, the stem and the leaf is the same size as the apple. So first, where is the center of the apple? Where does that stem come out? I'm going to put a little dot in that space, and that looks pretty good. So from the center out, when I compared the two, the leaf is going to be, and I'm talking about this big leaf here, is going to be about the same size of the apple. Okay, so it's going to be pretty large. But I don't want to just leave it as a circle. I want to sketch it out. I'm making a framework or a skeleton. So starting with that dip, the branch or the stem is coming towards me and going back into this dip here, and the branch or the main vein of that leaf is here, and about halfway up. And you'll notice that my leaf is going beyond the circle that I drew, and that's fine. The size or the use of the prop is just to get us going, so we're kind of aware of the size and the direction of each leaf and stem. And that leaf is going to go off my page. Okay, now I'm ready to start drawing. So when I'm drawing, I want to start with the part closest to me, which is the top of the core. So if this is my whole apple, where is that center? The dip. I'll put a little dot there for that. And I'm going to come forward from that point, and that is where I'm going to start. And I'm looking at the edge or the contour of that core. And some parts are smooth, and some parts are more jagged. So it's fine if it doesn't fill the whole circle because I don't have the whole apple. Next, compared to these edges, this part of the core is very jagged. I don't want to just start anywhere. I'm going to start here with this edge and follow it down. But last time when we looked at the peach, we talked about how I want to imagine that I am an ant crawling along that edge. So everywhere I see the edge change or the line change, I want to have my line change. Okay, so now I'm going to come across. I think I think I'll come across here. So again, the edge is not straight. I'm not drawing it with a ruler. I'm following that across. And then the line bends and changes direction. So now I'm checking out this angle. It's sort of going back into space. And it's coming back up the side of the apple core. And it's kind of a raggedy line. And it's not smooth. Now I'm not really done because I've done the main edges, but I have parts of the apple core coming out. So now I'm going to come back and sort of like how a tree grows out of the ground. And over here, the apple core, remember, is not flat, it's three-dimensional. So just like with our shoe, we're going to see more than one side. If I look here, I have almost a corner, not exactly a corner. And so when I come back and add my shading, some of these lines are going to be more important. Anywhere an object shifts or changes direction, I'm going to see a change in value. Okay? Now I sort of indicated where this dimple is, but it's not just a dimple. This line comes out and makes sort of this front edge, but it has a front and it also has a back. So what happens with that shape? So I'm sort of drawing the shape of that hole, and some of the fingers of the apple or the shadow kind of come up. So I'll work on that more when I add the value. I think that's fine for now. Okay, we're working front. We started with the core. Now we're working to the apple. But I want to start the apple at the front of the apple, and I want to check where the edge of the apple is touching. I'm looking where they're overlapping. So is it starting up here or is it starting behind the core? And it's starting kind of right here under this edge. So I'm going to come down. And the apple is sort of circular, but it's not like a ball. So I'm going to see dips, and I'm going to draw all the way to the edge of my page. Follow that line around. And where would it come back in the page? And why did I stop? I stopped because I'm interrupted by this stem and this leaf. Okay, so let's come up here. I'm going to come over to this side now and draw up here, and then I will go to the center. So I'm following where I started. Here's where I started. Where will that apple come behind? And where does it come out from behind the core? I want to spend most of my time looking at what I'm drawing. I'm going to leave a little gap. There's the stem of the leaf. There's a leaf. Okay, and I might have to make some adjustments there. All right. The next thing I want to look at is, remember, we're drawing front to back. So I have the stem that comes out of the center hole, but it's starting towards me. The part that's towards me, that's kind of called foreshortening, and I kind of started it here, but I'm going to change the angle. Now it looks like it's, if I check this angle with my pencil, I'm holding it out, it's kind of more at an angle, and I drew it more straight towards me. So I want it to look natural, so I'm going to start, and I'm noticing that the tip of the stem is not a circle, it's more oval. And I want to check the angle, and the angle of that is kind of going this way. So it's bigger at the front and smaller as it goes to the back. I don't really see the end, I see where it kind of is the back of that piece, and now it's going to go into the stem. Remember, the stem of the leaf is, again, not straight like a ruler, so I'm following the line, and where the line edge bends, I want my line to bend. The stem on the back of this leaf is pretty thick. It's much thicker than a pencil, but it's certainly not as thick as this stem where the apple hooked to the tree. So I'm going to come back to the center, and I'm going to add a narrow line, and I will probably accentuate this as a light line when I add the shadows, but I'm not there yet. Okay. Next, I want to look at how much space is between here and where the leaf starts. I think that's a pretty fair amount. There's quite a bit of space between the edge of the leaf and the edge of the apple, maybe more than what I showed, so I'm going to start my leaf about here. What happens to that edge? The leaf is not flat like a piece of paper, so I'm going to follow one edge to its conclusion, and I'm going to come back on the other side of the stem and draw the other edge, because it's going to come down and come across. Okay, now my stem doesn't touch that, so it's going to come here, and then right here I'm seeing a little bit of this other side of the leaf, so I'm going to add that. We've talked about with our shoes how it twists over. Okay, underneath this leaf I see a small piece of another leaf that's kind of peeking out behind, and the stem does not line up in the same place, so I'm going to add that. It also has a stem that comes up into the leaf, so they sort of overlap there. And now I'm going to come to the small leaf, and I'm coming back to my starting point, following the stem up and the main edge of the leaf on the right, coming back to the stem, the main edge of the leaf on the left. And when I look at this stem, it kind of cuts across the top here. So I'm going to do that, draw that edge, and the leaf kind of curls over. So I'm seeing the front, and I'm seeing the inside. And now I'm going to add this piece of leaf. Okay, and now I'm going to come back to where our stem started from the apple and draw this last leaf, which is going to be going off the edge of my paper. So I'll start with the main edge, and then the leaf goes off the edge, and it comes down and goes off the edge here. All right. So now I have all my parts. Before I start adding value, I need a little bit more information. I need to think about the highlight, the lightest values on the object. I don't see too many distinct or sharp highlights up here on the top of the apple, but because it's the top, it's lighter than what is vertical. But if I look at the whole apple, I see quite a few really light spots.